Hey guys, this is Comics G-Man. We're going to do a bit of a special article about Superman and his creators that I ran into tonight while I was on my break at work, and I think it's a well-worthy read. So I can't wait to share this with you guys, and I want to know what you think about it. But first, let's get this show started. Okay guys, so let's get started with this article. It's very strange title. It's actually what kind of made me like, wait a minute, what the hell is this? So I put it on. Stop Jew-hooing Superman by Andrew Fogel, August 13th, 2025. He wrote this a month or so after Superman came out. So what does Andrew have to say about this? Let's see what he says here. James Gunn's summer blockbuster Superman arrived in theaters July 11th to great fanfare. It stars the half-Jewish actor David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan, an honorary tribe member for her role as Midge in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. The movie revitalized the long-held belief, especially among American Jewry, that Superman is secretly Jewish. Even the American Jewish Historical Society endorsed this viewpoint. But shouldn't he be seen that way, and what was the intent of his creator? Should he be seen that way, and what was the intent of his creator? Jew-hooing Superman, or the revealing of his Jewish origins, fascinates scholars, enthusiasts, and fans. This activity, named after the 1997 website Jewwho.com, which exposed celebrities' Jewishness without their consent and without respect for their religious self-identification, belies the personal history and own words of Superman's Jewish creators, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Instead of religion and ethno-racial identity, their appetite for American popular culture and science fiction better explains Superman's development. Moses and immigration. Many emphasize Superman's origin story as proof of a hidden Jewishness. The narrative, they contend, retells Moses' survival in allegory because the infant Superman escaped the planet of Krypton in a spaceship and sailed the cosmos to Earth for safety. Kryptonians were nevertheless not slaves, and there was no pharaoh figure intent on murdering the firstborn males on Krypton. Unlike Superman, Moses rejected his adopted family and returned to his people and led them from bondage in Egypt until settling in the Promised Land after wandering for 40 years. Superman's migration is the story of Exodus without any Exodus ever taking place, religious studies scholar Martin Lund observes to dispel the Jewish analogy. Moreover, Siegel never mentioned Moses as motivation in interviews or in his unpublished 1978 memoir. The water and basket motif of the royal child sent to and raised by rustic parents was common in mythology around the world, as Otto Rank shows in his work. Superman's journey to a new world, facing trials and challenges, and gift of magical flight realizes enough key stages to qualify for Joseph Campbell's concept of the monomyth, better known as the hero's journey. Advocates stress that Superman's interstellar journey limns Jewish immigration from Europe to America, but this favored interpretation does not reflect his creator's reality. Siegel was born in America, and Shuster in Canada, with no memory of or known wistfulness for the old world their parents had left. It was the third generation in the post-war period, sociologist Herbert J. Gons argues, that develops, quote, a nostalgic allegiance to the culture of the immigrant generation or that of the old country. Superman's author simply inverted the blueprint of a marvelous hero battling foes in outer space. He said, it occurred to me, Siegel writes in his autobiography, why not have a comics hero, Hero's Astounding Adventures, take place right here on Earth, in cities similar to those we are familiar with? Shuster praised his creative partner's innovation to Nemo, the classic comics library in 1983. Jerry reversed the usual formula of the superhero who goes to another planet. He put the superhero in ordinary, familiar surroundings, instead of the other way around, as was done in most science fiction. That was the first time I can recall that it had ever been done. No deeper message to Superman's alien origin existed. Superman's creators found inspiration in science fiction. Superman's immigrant attribution dissolves under scrutiny. The Kent family adopted the alien refugee who absorbed their rural, agrarian, and white Anglo-Saxon Protestant character. This stranger experienced none of the adversity or othering actual immigrants did, because the Kent family raised him with the privileged identity. Superman's childhood is not infused with any sense of foreignness. Lund correctly remarks, Siegel and Schuster's champion had no foreign accent to overcome and never toiled as a laborer or factory worker, common immigrant jobs, but worked as investigative reporter for a major metropolitan newspaper. He is an immigrant by default. If Superman is an immigrant, he is an immigrant who proves that he, and by extension his creators and those like them, could leave the old world behind. The New Republic editor Leon Wieselter agreed with Lund, saying, if Superman is an American Jewish fantasy, it's the fantasy of escaping from identity. Siegel drew from popular entertainment rather from Judaism. Superman's genesis paralleled that of another comic strip and movie hero, Tarzan. As cartoonist Jules Pfeiffer explained, a shipwrecked son of an English lord, the baby Tarzan is washed up on African shores to be rescued and raised by nurturing apes who teach him their ways, inspiring him to protect the helpless. There he is. Oh, this is Goober Mighty. This is something else. That's Siegel and Schuster's first strongman hero, 1932. Goober the Mighty. The goofiest, nuttiest character ever created, yet he's the idol and hero of millions. Goober the Mighty. He makes Hercules look like a sissy. Image in Tom Andre and Mel Gordon Siegel Schuster's Finney Man. This explanation is more convincing given Siegel's fascination with Edgar Rice Burroughs' Wilderness Warrior. Siegel created the cartoon Goober the Mighty in 1931 for his high school newspaper, the Glenville Torch. He remembers in his memoir the strong man raised by a lion as a wacky takeoff of Tarzan. Siegel and Schuster siphoned ideas from American popular culture inspired by the frontier. It was this literary motif, whether earthly or cosmic, that forged Superman's narrative core. Samson and strongmen. Besides relying on Moses to Jew Superman, adherents of Superman's hidden Jewish identity point to the biblical strongman Samson. Lund reminds us that these figures have long been common in Western culture in general, and thus their possible uses in pop culture must be considered beyond merely pointing to a parallel based on superficial similarities. There's Superman tearing up some freaking pillars here. Damn. Superman number 4, spring 1940. There he is picking up a train. Superman Action Comics number 7, 1938. In his memoir, Siegel mentions Samson and the Superman number 4 cover art where Superman destroys temple pillars. Action Comics number 7 and other early adventures announce that Superman possesses the strength of a dozen Samsons. These are nonetheless false positives for the Jewish thesis. A fascination with muscular men accounts for Siegel's words. He discusses Samson in context of other strongmen like Burroughs, Tarzan, and John Carter, and the mythical Hercules in his autobiography. Siegel even shared this non-Jewish motivation back in 1941 to the Saturday Evening Post. Quote, I conceived a character like Samson, Hercules, and all the strong men I ever heard tell of rolled into one. He repeated this sentiment in July 1946 for Coronet. Superman is, Siegel said, a combination of Samson, Hercules, and Atlas, plus the morals of Sir Galahad. Lund conveys the issue of assigning Jewishness to Superman. Quote, the mention of Samson here alone makes Superman no more a Jewish character than the other mentions make him a Greek or Arthurian one. Facts. Schuster even referenced, dude, Superman is his own thing. Superman is above all of us, bro. Like, Superman is like nothing else. There's only one. There's only one Superman. Schuster even referenced Samson and Hercules and Nemo as inspiration for the first version of Superman, a villain, The Reign of the Superman. Siegel and Schuster's January 1933 short story, published in the third issue of their mimeographed fan-sized science fiction, The Advance Guard of Future Civilization, chronicles Bill Dunn's transformation from breadline outcast to superior being intent on world domination. This connection continued with the third iteration of Superman, published in Action Comics number 1, June 1938. Schuster explained, quote, "I had classical heroes and strong men in mind, and this shows in the footwear. In the third version, Superman wore sandals laced halfway up the calf. You can still see this on the cover of Action number 1, though they were covered over in red to look like boots when the comic was printed. Wow, I didn't know that. That's really cool." The physical culture of the period also influenced Superman's artist. Schuster tried a protein diet, Lionel Strongfort's mail-order methods, and weightlifting in Barney Kefron's Cleveland gym to change his physique. The Saturday Evening Post reported, "Dude, relatable, bro. I'm doing the same kind of shit." I mean, working out and weightlifting. Like, Superman definitely inspired me, bro. Like, I started weightlifting more into it, though, this year. But I was weightlifting before that, but like now it's like very disciplined, very serious part of my life now. So that's really cool that Schuster was doing the same kind of thing at that time. Schuster told Nemo that he bought bodybuilding magazines from secondhand stores. Entertainers like Charles Atlas, Sandow, and Harry Houdini loomed large in the culture and promoted the power and authority of the Euro-American white male body. The idea that Sigmund Breitbart, a Yiddish-speaking strongman from Poland, inspired Superman is speculation. Superman's escapades feature direct and indirect references to Greek heroes and gods such as Hercules, Adonis, Mercury, and Apollo. Of course, dude, all the superhero stuff has to be from that. Like, all of these kinds of things ends up back to the Greek gods and all of that. I mean, you can't get away from it. They came up with it first, really. These include Action Comics numbers 28 and 58, Superman numbers 20, 26, and 28, and World's Finest numbers 19, 23, and 28. Greco-Roman figures are visible, Jewish characters are absent. Mainstream America permitted Wasp and ancient heroes in their fantasy. I don't know what they mean by Wasp. Quote, Siegel and Schuster's lack of Jewish representation in Superman, as Lund fittingly asserts, was likely a conscious evasion of anything that could be deleterious to Jewish acculturation or feed American anti-Semitism. I have to disagree with that. I don't think that's the reason. I mean, maybe, different times. But I don't think they were... maybe, dude. I don't know the mind of Joe and Jerry, so I can't speak for them. I would like to read more about them, and I'll go over what I want to read about them after I finish this article. So let's go on with the article. Philip Wiley's 1930 novel Gladiator spotlights the name Samson and is a more likely inspiration than the Book of Judges. In Wiley's book, biology professor Abednego Daner tests his superhuman serum on a pregnant cat before his gestating wife. He names the kitten who cannonballs through a wall like Superman later does, Samson. Dr. Danner compares his son's strength to that of Samson and Hercules. Hugo Danner even pulls down the stone fort he built as a child in the mountains of Colorado and later imagines demolishing German edifices to end World War I and the U.S. Capitol building like Samson at the Philistines' Temple of Dagon. That's based. I like that. The U.S. Capitol building? That's pretty cool. The scientific explanation of Clark Kent's amazing strength. Let's read this panel real quick. Listen to this. Kent had come from a planet whose inhabitants' physical structure was millions of years advanced of our own. Upon reaching maturity, the people of his race became gifted with titanic strength, Incredible? No, for even today on our world exist creatures with super strength. The lowly ant can support weights hundreds of times its own. The grasshopper leaps what to man would be the space of several city blocks. Yeah, right, it's true. Even upon our world today exist creatures possessing super strength. Oh, that's the lowly ant. It's just that's another comic, I guess. They're just repeating the line. So yeah, really cool. Really cool references here. I have these. I have these in the Golden Age books. Really good stuff. Superman's wondrous deeds derive from Gladiator, where the natural and modern world meet. Dr. Danner compares his son's powers to those of ants and grasshoppers. Did you ever watch an ant carry many times its weight, or see a grasshopper jump 50 times its length? Hugo Danner, frightened of his new abilities, told his father, "I can jump higher in the house. I can run faster than the train. I can pull up big trees and push them over." Siegel narrates and Schuster visualizes these two examples of insect power in the first issues of Action Comics and Superman to explain Superman's abilities to lift tremendous weights, leap over buildings, and outrun express trains. Siegel's bosses knew about his pilfering. What does he mean by that? Jack S. Leibowitz, March 1939 letter to Siegel indicated that Alfred A. Knopf's attorney found that Superman's feats of running faster than a train and knocking out 6 men at one time and knocking over a train are brought out in the book Gladiator. Harry Donenfield's undated screed from the 1950s to Siegel is striking. Quote, "According to your own circulated statements, you plagiarized Superman from the writings of Philip Wiley, inasmuch as you openly and brazenly confess to such purloining. It seems to me that Philip Wiley should receive from you the thousands of dollars my company paid you for your creation." Damn, dude, that's rough. Jewishness, Krypton, and Kryptonite. Defenders of the Hebraic theory attest that Superman is a coded angel. The Festschrift Superman at 50 quotes Catholic priest Andrew M. Greeley saying that Superman's cape symbolizes wings. Siegel, however, provided a different reasoning in his autobiography. He recalls suggesting to Schuster, quote, that Superman wear a cape that would whip around when the character was in action to give the impression of more speed. Siegel further explains that, quote, this would add more colorful hyperdrama to the movements of Superman, especially when he was leaping or flying. Superman's cloak pays homage to Siegel's favorite performer, Douglas Fairbanks Sr., who donned the garment of Zorro. Bro, dude, the history, man. Oh, this is just, I'm loving this article. Amazing. Schuster repeated the King of Hollywood's impact in Nemo. Quote, Fairbanks would swing on ropes very much like Superman flying or like Tarzan on a vine. Schuster agreed with Siegel that the cape provided the feeling of action. When Superman was flying or jumping or leaping, a flowing cape would give it movement. It really helped, and it was very easy to draw. Wow, that's a cool drawing. Oh, Jor-El places infant son into the model of the spaceship. That's a black and white drawing there. Oh, wow, look at that drawing. They almost look like, he just looks like, he doesn't look like a futuristic guy in a civilization, and Lara looks like, Superman's mother here, she looks like a girl from the 20s. That's funny, right? She looks like one of those, what do they call those girls from the 20s? That's funny. Alright, let's go on. Jew-hooers shout that Superman's Kryptonian surname signals one of the Hebrew names of God, yet the House of El idea is a misnomer. George Lothar, who wrote for, narrated, and later directed the Superman radio show, changed the Kryptonian family name El from the newspaper comics to the phonetic L. In his 1942 novel, The Adventures of Superman, this is why I've never put any credence into the argument that Siegel intended Superman to be a Jewish avatar. Tom DeHaven sounds in his Superman book, Our Hero. All you can really argue is that George Lothar possibly meant Superman to be a Jewish aviator, and so what, right? George Lothar. Okay, that's cool. There was no Hebrew origin for Superman's father's name. As Superman's author explains, quote, "The name Jor-El was an anagram of my name, Jerome Siegel." Oh, dude, that's sick. I didn't know that. The source, that's actually really fucking cool, dude, because he is literally the father of Superman. Whoa, I love it. I did not know that, guys. I really didn't. This is so cool. The source of Superman's Kryptonian name, Kal-El, and his mother's Laura go unstated in his chronicle. Siegel first used the name Jor-El in New Adventures Comics number 12 for his space lawman strip The Federal Men of Tomorrow. His penchant for the 12th letter of the English alphabet expanded to alliteration. Consider Superman's love interest and archenemy Lois Lane, Lana Lang, Lori Lamaris, Lila Larol, and Lex Luthor. David Mamet illustrates this connection in his 1989 book Some Freaks. Larry Ty expands the list of LLs in his 2013 biography, Superman. The Judeo-centric position relies on Pfeiffer's The Minsk Theory of Krypton. Pfeiffer's 1996 obituary for Siegel testified that Krypton's fate was symbolic of Jewish plight. Quote, "It wasn't Krypton that Superman really came from. It was the planet Minsk or Lodz or Vilna or Warsaw." Proponents expanded Krypton's annihilation to a metaphor for Nazi eradication of Jewish people and their homelands in Europe. I know, but like Krypton is destroyed because of I don't see the correlation there, because it's not like it was a genocide by other living beings. Krypton explodes, so it's not really the same. This too is ahistorical. Siegel devised the Superman concept between 1932 and 1934, years before Kristallnacht, Kinder Transport, World War II, and the Holocaust. That's a good point, too. Lund addresses these issues and more in his 2016 rebuttal, Reconstructing the Man of Steel. I'll have to look that up. I'll just search that up for later. The Holocaust parable for Krypton is uncorroborated. Consider DeHaven's words on the matter, quote, "Whether Superman editor Mort Weisinger and his virtually all-Jewish cadre of creative talent were consciously using the Krypton adventures of the late 50s and early 60s as metaphors for the European Holocaust of the 40s is anybody's guess. They never said, not that anyone ever asked." Scientific explanation of Superman's amazing strength. Oh, alright. Krypton's origins belong to science fiction. Siegel seized the name from the periodic table's noble gases and likely copied Burroughs, who named one of the Martian kingdoms helium. Blending fantasies and eugenics, Superman number 1, summer of 1939, describes Kryptonians as an evolved super race. Schuster draws a futuristic city. Krypton is not the Jewish shtetl or ghetto. Superman's Jewhooers cite kryptonite as confirmation for the Jewish assimilation thesis. Kal-El weakens the closer he gets to his alien origins. Kryptonite's debilitating effects, therefore, function as a metaphor for his writers' and editors' ambivalence towards their immigrant roots. Historian Gary Gersel explains it best in American Crucible. Quote, "Exposure is a constant worry, because it will increase his vulnerability to his enemies, who have learned that kryptonite strips him of his superhuman powers. Fragments of Superman's home planet play with alienage in a clever way by dismantling his Anglo-Saxon facade." Quote, "Superman's immigrant story is, according to Gersel, a triumphant saga of a Nordic Americanization, although it carries a harsh warning about the consequences of having one's real alien identity uncovered." A Cold War interpretation is more plausible. The Superman radio series introduced kryptonite in 1943, but only explored it 2 years later with the Atom Man sequence. Kryptonite entered the comic books in Superman number 61, November of 1949. It gained importance in Superman's lore after atomic bomb detonation. Weisinger expanded the green meteorite into an assortment of colors starting in 1958 to reflect atomic anxieties. Kryptonite is essentially radiation poisoning for Superman. The origins of kryptonite dates back to an unpublished story Siegel wrote in 1940 that expresses no Jewish symbolism. K-metal depletes Superman of his powers, but bestows humans that touch the glowing green meteorite with tremendous strength. It was a science fiction plot device for Superman reveal his true identity to his love interest, Lois Lane. Popular historian Gerard Jones suggests that Siegel's marital bliss with his first wife, Bella, however temporary, may have inspired the storyline. Superman's publisher, nonetheless, nixed the adventure because it presented Superman and Lane as partners, effectively suspending the love triangle premise key to the mythology. Quote, "Never meddle with a proven success," Ty declares. Siegel and Shuster biographer Brad Ricea notes that, quote, "It makes sense that a higher-up realized this would change Superman's status quo too drastically." Wow, very interesting. For Siegel, the Kryptonian backstory was apparently an afterthought. He reveals in his memoir that the newspaper syndicate requested 2 weeks of strips describing Krypton and its destruction for Superman's 1939 debut in the dailies. Siegel reduced the cataclysm to a single panel in the first issues of Action Comics and Superman. He returned to the plot device in Superman number 141, November of 1960. The inaugural episode of the 1940 Superman radio show, produced by Robert Maxwell and Alan Duchovny, provides far more detail and drama before the planet explodes into millions of glowing fragments. Religious self-identification. Siegel never admitted to imbuing his champion with Jewishness. His late second wife, Joanne, confirmed this in a 1996 interview for the Jewish Week, but conceded the possibility of unconscious influence, and Siegel's daughter, Laura, acquiesced to the same at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2023, when the inevitable question of Jewish subtext arose. Siegel himself proclaimed in the Nemo that he and Shuster, quote, "practically lived in movie theaters." Superman's Jewhooers continually ignore the pair's message of popular entertainment influences. I'd like to look at this panel from one of the old Superman things. Oh, look at that. Why is Superman looking like that? That's cool. "I'd like to land a strictly non-Aryan sock on your jaw, but there's no time for that. You're coming with me while I visit a certain pal of yours." "Put me down! You're hurting me!" Dude, like, Superman was doing Captain America's job before Captain America came in. The extent to which Siegel embraced his Jewish roots is debatable. Cousin Jerry Fine told Jones, quote, "I don't think he ever went to the synagogue in his life." Wow, that's cool, because that's like my grandpa. My grandpa's the same way, dude. Like, he was, I guess, his mother went to church, and they were Catholics, I guess. But my grandfather really never went to the church his whole life, you know? So, like, he's like my grandpa, man. And that's how I am. I haven't went to church, like, since I was a child. You know, it's just not my thing. So that's really cool, dude. It's really cool. Like, I'm learning some really cool stuff here about these guys. Siegel uses the word Jewish once in his chronicle to refer to the Nazi response to Superman's manhandling of Hitler in the 1940 comic for Look magazine. Oh, so that was in a magazine, okay. He does not self-identify as Jewish or discuss his mother's and older brother's role in Cleveland's Jewish community, only that the SS newspaper Das Schwarzkorps named him a tribe member. Threatening to sock Hitler in the jaw and rejecting Aryan racial supremacy does not make Superman Jewish. Right, like, you don't have to be Jewish to feel that way, you know what I mean? Like, you could be somebody who just is against that kind of stuff. You don't have to be Jewish to be that way. It is true that Siegel cites, quote, oppressed Jews in Nazi Germany in his 1975 press release, and the persecution and murder of Jews and others by the totalitarian regime as inspiration in his 1978 memoir. But it is revisionism that contradicts his own chronology of Superman's creation. What does he mean by that? Siegel's presumed hostility toward Hitler via a 1932 joke in the Glenville Torch about the two playing, quote, a wild game of pinochle, and the popularity of Nazism in 1930s Cleveland also does not demonstrate causality. Judaizing Superman hangs on the flimsy idea that his Jewish creators automatically created Jewish material. It is a reclamation project of ethnic pride and a myth-based heritage fabrication reminiscent of 1960s ethnic revival literature and movies that projects the post-war period and post-Holocaust knowledge and concerns into the past. Superman's Jew-hooers enjoined the public to believe that Siegel and Schuster infused Superman with their Jewishness, and it was the primary determining factor in their creative lives. But what Siegel and Schuster's Jewishness meant for them at the time, as Lund articulates, was not necessarily the same as it means for their Jewish interpreters today. None of the examples marshaled by Jew-hooers that's such a... I'm sorry, I can't get used to this. It sounds like whores. It's such a weird... I wish there was another term, but I get that the writer is referencing the website, but it just sounds so weird. Prove that Superman is Jewish. None of these examples prove that he's Jewish. These creative interpretations, articulated as evidence and devoid of historical context, disregard the affinities and statements of Superman's creators. Finding Jewishness in the character, who is not even human, right, illustrates a confirmation bias and a reluctance to entertain more persuasive explanations. This perspective dominates the scholarly and popular landscape and imposes an ahistorical view on the past. It is time to stop Jew-hooing Superman. Wow, so that was really great article. He's got all of his references here, some really good references. I'm gonna have to look at them more deeply because I want to check out some of the books that he referenced in here, like Otto Rank, The Myth of the Birth of the Hero. I wouldn't read that one, but I want to read the Superman stuff for sure. Really cool. Lund, I'm going to check out this one by Lund, Reconstructing the Man of Steel. That sounds really cool. Jerry Siegel, Creation of a Superhero. Unpublished manuscript. November 7th, 1978. I'll have to see if they have... It says unpublished, but is it out? Tom Andre, Joffrey and Gary of Superman and Kids with Dreams. Yeah, so some really good... Wow, this guy did his research. Wow, look at all these references. Wow, 35. Solid. Solid references. This guy did his fucking research. Andrew Fogel. And okay, now we have to give the video full context. We have to give credit to the guy who wrote the article. He did a phenomenal fucking job. About the author, Andrew Fogel. Andrew Fogel is a historian of popular culture whose research and writing explores the place of superheroes in the everyday world and the power they hold over the American imagination for both kids and adults. He completed his PhD in history at Purdue University, won the Skirball Cultural Center's Howard I. Friedman Prize for his essay, Superman's Jaw. I'll have to check that out. I'm going to save that. And will be the visiting scholar at the Center for Jewish History this fall. So, wow. Great article. This is a great article I want on my channel. I want other people to check this out. Read it yourself, too, if you want to read it, and check out those references in his article, too, if you're interested. I want to find some kind of... I couldn't find, an official autobiography of, what's his name? Of Jerry Siegel. When I typed in Jerry Siegel autobiography or Schuster, they had this, and they had random stuff here that's not even him. But here's some Superboys, but it's a biography by Brad Rika, which was referenced in the article, but I don't want to see that one. Jerry Siegel, Syndicate of Crime, Tribute. This is the one I think I have to check out. Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's Science Fiction Annotated, The Reign of the Superman. I think this is the one I have to check out because high quality reprint of The Reign of Superman, and it's the very first Superman story. Okay, I didn't know that. So that's not even I thought that was a autobiography or some kind of memoir, but that's still pretty cool. I'm gonna save that. What else? This is pretty cool. The first Jewish superhero from the creators of Superman, Funny Man. I'm gonna check that out. I'll save that. What's this one? Tribute. Nah, I don't really want to see that one. I already did that. Alright, so this right here I have on the archive. It's only 98 pages. Creation of a Superhero, Jerry Siegel, unpublished autobiography, and it dates back to 1980. I think that's really sad. Why isn't this published? Anybody review or nobody even reviewed it. 99 views and 7 favorites. I by Jerry Siegel. I am the writer who originated the idea of doing an adventure comic strip. Wow, this is really fucking cool. Dude, why isn't this out? Like, even if it's unfinished, like, why can't we buy this? I'm gonna save this and read this. You know, maybe we'll read this together one day. I don't know. Are you guys up for a reading of this? Or no, probably not. I'll probably just read it and like make some notes about it, and you know, the best parts about it that I could find, and I'll just try to summarize it as best as I can in like a video one day. But I'm gonna save this because I was like talking to my grandpa yesterday, and we were talking about like Superman, and he was saying like it's amazing how like those two guys created Superman. Look at all this great stuff we got like after all these decades. And, like, you know, I actually don't know anything about Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, and I really one day like want to really read about them. You know, like, you don't hear about them as much. Like, you know, we all know who Stan Lee is, Steve Ditko. I mean, I don't hear like regular people bring up Steve Ditko, but you know, you hear everyone knows Stan Lee because he was in the movies and stuff. And there's other all the other writers that I've talked about on my channel, of course, but I don't actually know anything about Jerry and Siegel and the artist Joe Shuster, so I have to definitely read about them one day. I think they deserve that. Alright guys, so damn, I know this was a long video, but this is a really important video to me because I thought it was like just another way to get my foot in and just learn a bit more about Jerry and Joe. So, and it's just the start of it. Like I said, I'll read this memoir eventually, and talk about that in the future. Alright guys, so let me know in the comments, did you like the video? Like, subscribe, talk about it. What do you know about Joe and Jerry? Do you know any good books that I couldn't find on Amazon that are worth reading about them? I mean, like, I'm looking for something that's, like, more personal, more from Jerry and Joe's words. That's what I mean. You know, like, I'm okay with biographies, but I really want autobiography material like this memoir here. And, you know, let me know. And, you know, who is your favorite writer, comic book writers? You know, you just talk in the comments, guys. I mean, you're like the kids in school that, like, you know, the teacher is talking to his whole class and he asks them a question and like everyone is afraid or just doesn't like want to raise their hands, or they're just waiting for the class to end, and the teacher is just like, all right, fine, I'll answer the question myself, I'll talk to myself. You know, like, I'm like that teacher, bro. That's how I feel. Like, I'm talking to myself most of the time. I know you guys are there, I know you're all there, but you're either shy. I got a few viewers who, you know, pop up here and there, like regulars, but even they disappear once in a while. They're doing things, I guess. But yeah, guys, come on, let's talk. But anyway, thanks for watching the video. Have a good rest of your night, guys.